Oh my gosh, it's always so hard for me to figure out where to start with this video because there's just so much information. I have so many experiences. I think I'm just gonna kind of get into it. I've grown up in multiple haunted houses between the ages of literally when I was born to now, honestly. Like, I'm 26 now. And every house I've lived in has, for the most part, had some type of paranormal activity in it. So if you're ready for the story, get comfy, get a cup of coffee whenever you're watching this, tea, just something good, because we're gonna hang out for a while and talk. I'm not gonna get into a lot of detail in every single experience because I do want to make separate videos talking into more detail about them, especially with the people that I experience them with, like my family members, my friends. So I'm gonna start with some things that I remember growing up. And I'll start with around the age of, I think I was like 4. So for a little background of me, I grew up in a town called Collingswood in New Jersey. I used to live next to the Wawa. There used to be a strip of apartments on the same street as Wawa. And they knocked them down now and it's all new stores and new apartments. But I lived in one of the original apartments. Over top of a store. I remember, like, it's so weird when you have, like, remember things from when you were a kid, because you're like, did I dream these things or did I actually experience certain things? I remember when I was a kid seeing a little girl in the back room of that house, and she was wearing, like, back then I used to say prairie clothes because she looked like she was from the 1800s. She had dark hair and it was kind of back in like a low messy bun, and she had a dress on with like the white apron. And I remember like seeing her, and I remember like sitting on and I was by myself in the back room. It was my mom's room. And I also have a twin sister, so she had a lot of weird experiences with me as well. But I just remember like feeling like there was something back there. And I also remember having a lot of night terrors as a kid, like a lot. I remember I had this nightmare where I thought I don't know if it was a nightmare or real. I remember it being real, but I remember waking up from a bad dream and then I thought I saw a man that I used to say looked like George Washington as a 4 or 5-year-old kid standing in my room, and I just remember that stuck with me ever since. Fast forward, we moved into another house after that in Collingswood, and we lived there for a couple of years. Also, if you're wondering why we moved around so much, my mom was a single mother and it was hard for her financially. I'm sure there's more that goes into it. I'm not sure, and it's not really my business to put out there on why we moved around so much, but I know that that was definitely a factor. The second house we lived in was on Collins Ave in Collingswood. In this house, I remember, like, I have really good memories of this house. My sister and I always used to, like, get into trouble in a way. Like, we always used to just be rambunctious and silly, and we're always getting in trouble for running up and down the stairs. I'm not sure about my mom's paranormal experiences in this house, but I just remember, like, always having weird dreams, and I always was empathic from the youngest age ever. Like, ever since I can remember, I've always been empathic. I've always felt, like, so deeply. So I remember having a lot of weird dreams in this house as well. I don't remember seeing anything particular. My younger sister, Maya, my mom was dating her dad at the time, and I think I was about like 5 around this time, 5 or 6. I was going into kindergarten when we lived there. And he was putting my twin sister and I up to bed. This is before Maya was born. But he was putting my twin sister and I up to bed, and supposedly he saw the spirit of a little girl. And she looked at him and he looked at her and he was like, "Do you need help?" And supposedly she ran into the closet. And it shook him up, and my mom was like, "What the heck?" So that's the second time that there was a little girl in the picture. Now, I don't know if he saw spirits a lot. I don't know if like he was open in that way. That's all I can pretty much say about it. I can't really give any more details on that. So then we moved in with my grandmother in Collingswood, and we lived with her for like 5 years. Amazing woman. I miss her so much. She's the best person ever, was the best person ever. I just miss her so much. Anyway, I had a couple paranormal experiences in that house. Now, for the most part, that house was, it always will be my home, my childhood home, the main childhood home I think of, because there was just so much love there and it was amazing. But I remember the paranormal experiences I had. Actually, oh my gosh, I can't believe I forgot about this. I almost didn't say this. So the first night I moved, it was me, my mom, Maya, and Macy. Macy's my twin sister, if I didn't say that already. And me and Macy were 6. So we moved in the house and all of us slept upstairs. The attic was huge. It was like a long, huge attic. My nan's room was on the first floor. So it was just the first floor and then the attic. But my nan's room was on the first floor and she had double beds in her bedroom. So Macy and I slept in that room with her the first night and my mom slept upstairs with my youngest sister. And I just remember waking up in the middle of the night and the house was pitch black, like absolutely pitch black. I felt like I couldn't even see my hand in front of me. But I remember wanting my mom and I was really upset and I was basically almost crying and I jumped down from the bed and her bed was pretty high up, but I jumped down from the bed and I went to move my feet and it felt like these hands were pressing my feet down around my ankles. And when I tell you, that terrified the living heck out of me. I stood there frozen in fear for what felt like eternity. It was probably like not even a minute, but I actually felt like I was standing there forever and I'll never forget that. Eventually, I just somehow was able to just jump back on the bed and I guess I fell asleep. And in the morning, like I didn't remember it right away, but eventually I did and I remember telling my mom and she was like, what the heck? That's so weird. And I definitely know for a fact it wasn't a nightmare. Like, it was real. I know it was real. We lived there for about 5 years, and 5 or so years. And we ended up moving out again into a house down the street from my nan. And there was a time where I got my first cell phone. And it was a little flip phone, and it could take camera pictures. It was like a little prepaid phone. And we go back to the house, to my nan's house. We go back to my nan's house one night because she used to babysit us after school until my mom got done work, so we would always go there after school. And I guess we stopped there, or like my mom was picking us up, I don't really remember, but I remember like I was just being a freaking teenage girl in 6th grade and taking selfies in the mirror in the living room. And it was above the couch, and then behind me, if I was facing the mirror, there was like a table and 2 chairs. And I was just snapping away, and then I don't have the picture anymore, but there was a picture of a man sitting in the chair right here behind me, and you only saw from like here up. His face was kind of distorted, but it was like a white misty looking figure, and like you could tell he was wearing a suit with ruffles here. Keep that in mind. It scared the living heck out of me, but that scared me so bad. Like I remember kind of being in shock, and when I saw it I sat down and I was like there's no way I'm looking at this. So fast forward, we move into another house down the street from my grandmother, and I was going into 6th grade. And this is a whole nother story. I'm not going to get too detailed into it because it is not fully my story to tell. But my twin sister Macy had a attachment from a bad entity. I'm not even going to say spirit because this thing was not a ghost. It was an entity disguising itself as a little girl. There's so much that goes into this. My twin sister and my mom, if they feel comfortable sharing this story, because there's a lot of really personal things that you just don't really talk about that happened during this incident, but she had an attachment in that house. Now my friends and I decided to make our own little Ouija board on a piece of paper, and it never did anything. We played with it in the house. It never did anything. Then after that, my sister was having problems. She was seeing a little girl, and it would follow her to school. It followed her everywhere. If we were hanging out with friends, she was there. If we were going to the town pool, she was there. If she was in school, she was there. This thing was traumatizing her, and she started seeing shadow figures at the time out of the corner of her eyes. I was terrified. I didn't really see anything at this time, but she was. She would see short shadow figures and really tall ones. A lot of stuff happened. My mom went to a tarot reader who's amazing, and she's a friend. She was telling my mom, like, that is not a little girl. Like, you need that house blessed. That is not a little girl. And supposedly we had a portal opened up in the house. Now in that house, there was one day where I was home with my mom. My mom lived with us at the time, my mom's mom, and not my grandmother. My grandmother that I talked about previously is my great-grandmother. So my mom's mom, who's my mom, lived with us at the time. And it was just me and her home, and like, we always used to joke around with each other. And she was sitting on the couch and I was like messing around or whatever, and we were laughing and I was giggling about something, and all of a sudden out of the corner of my eye I see a man standing in the doorway, once again from his waist up, and he was wearing a suit with ruffles. And I sat down and I was like in shock, and my mom was like, "What's wrong?" And I was like, "I just saw a ghost." Like I just was in so much shock. So my mom had her own experience there. She was home alone there one day, and we had like, you know, the older box TVs with the screen is glass and you could see the reflections in it. So we had that TV, and she saw a man in the reflection standing in the doorway, and it scared her. Nobody was there. My uncle was over one time, and I think it was just her and my mom. I think it was just him and my mom there, and he heard like a loud bang. And he was like, "What the heck was that?" And he's going around the house looking, and my mom's mattress, not the box spring, but the mattress was moved, and it looked like somebody lifted it up and dropped it, but instead of it being this way, it was this way, like in the shape of a cross. And there was another time where us kids weren't home, and I think it was my mom and her boyfriend at the time was there.
So I was in my room, and outside my bedroom door, like if you were looking straight, you would see the kitchen.
Yeah.
And then if you went left out the door, it would go into the living room, and then your guys' room was back there. All of a sudden, all we hear is glass shatter. And Mama was in the living room. I was like, "What the heck was that?" And you guys were like, "I don't know." I'm like, "Did you guys hear that?" Everyone's like, "Yeah, do you know where it came from?"
Did we hear?
I have no idea.
Remember.
You did.
Like, I kind of remember, but
so I looked around, couldn't find anything, nothing at all.
So weird.
Day goes by, next day, everyone's at school, I'm at work, my mom's at work. I pick you guys up from Nan's, we go home. The shelf in the dining area part, the little like nook that we had to eat, back there, a shelf fell. All the glass was broken all over the floor. The woman had that stereo, little radio in there. Everything was on the floor, and the glass was completely smashed. Yeah. What? This has been recorded.
Talking about paranormal experiences.
Yeah.
I seen something on all fours in my room.
This was recently.
Until she staged that out.
I did.
Sorry, she definitely did. I feel so much safer.
Good. Like I said, I'm gonna make videos with all my siblings and my mom and us talking about all this. So then things get pretty bad for me and my personal experiences with the paranormal. Well, we did have that house blessed. We ended up moving again, which was kind of good because that house was there was just not good energy in there. So then we moved. The last house we lived in Collingswood, I was in 7th and 8th grade. There's just so much that other people have experienced in that house, and there's so much that I've experienced in that house. I remember Macy and I shared a room. So the apartment was on the 2nd and 3rd floor. It was huge too. Like, it was a pretty decent size for an apartment. On the 3rd floor, which was considered the attic, there was 2 rooms. There was a master bedroom and then like an average size bedroom. And then downstairs on the 1st floor, off the living room, was another room. My mom was in that room. Me and Macy took the master bedroom, and then my 2 younger sisters had the other room down the hall from me and Macy. It sucks because it was such a beautiful house. Very old. You could tell it was old, like very, very old. I had a lot of potential and everything. My youngest sister, Madison, she just poked her head in here, but they always slept with my mom. Always slept in my mom's bed, like while we were living there. They were young. Macy and I always slept in our room. Except when things started getting bad, I just remember her seeing things a lot. And I will get into a lot more detail about this since it is a lot of my experience and not just like everybody else's. But my mom, long story short, my mom has seen a little girl spirit sitting on the steps. I've seen a maid at the end of my mom's bed. It looked like a maid, somebody folding clothes at the end of her bed. And this apparition was definitely see-through and like misty. My younger sisters have seen the little girl. my cousin has seen the little girl in that house, and I feel so bad for this spirit too. Like, this definitely was not a malicious spirit. I think she was just lonely. So there was, even though there was some innocent experiences, like with the little girl, seeing somebody, like apparitions of, you know, spirits, we also had bad experiences in that house. I remember on my side of the room, it was very like, okay, first of all, before I skip too far ahead, I went with my mom to view this apartment before she started renting it, before she got accepted to rent it. And I did the walkthrough with her, and I remember, and I don't know if anybody else has ever felt this way walking into a room, but I remember walking through this house, and I just had this feeling, like this heavy feeling, like you walk in some of the rooms and the air would feel like thick, like the energy was thick. It felt like somebody was watching us, and it felt like every room that we went through, the door was just gonna slam shut behind us. And I don't know why, and I was a kid at the time. I was literally like 14 walking through this house with my mom. Maybe, actually, no, I wasn't 14. I think I was like 13 at the time, 12 or 13. I didn't understand what these feelings were, and now I have a better understanding of like feeling energy. I didn't know what it was at the time. I didn't know what I was feeling, but I just had a really weird feeling. But I liked the house. It was cute. When you went downstairs onto our porch, it was like, it was a nice, like, it was spacious. Like, it was a really nice apartment. And I was like, you know, thinking this will be good for our family. This will be good for us. But the experiences that we had definitely traumatized me to this day. My sister and I shared a room in the master bedroom. She was on one side, I was on the other side. And on my side of the room, I always felt like there was a heavier energy there. And I remember one time she started freaking out, and I woke up screaming, freaking out. My mom runs upstairs, and my mom's like, what's wrong? And at this point, I'm like, I can't even deal with anything. I'm so tired. I'm like half awake. But I'm listening to what she's saying, and she said that there was a shadow figure hovering above me while I was sleeping. And I was like, oh, hell no. And I jumped up and ran over to her bed and slept with her, because I was just questioning her. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, what did you see? Like, and she said it was there. Like, it was like she was blinking and it was there. That scared me. And I think I definitely had an attachment in this house. It was just bad. So I'm editing right now, and I will say that I did leave some stuff out of my part of the story. And I talked about how it was traumatizing for me. What was the most traumatizing was whatever bad spirit was in that house was definitely affecting me, because I was very, very vulnerable. It was around the time I got diagnosed with POTS, and I was diagnosed with depression and generalized anxiety. And I was going through a lot emotionally. And I think that left me open and vulnerable for whatever bad paranormal stuff that was going on in this house, because it started affecting whatever entity was there. It was starting to like affect my mood even more, and like make me feel things that weren't really me, that weren't really my emotions or thoughts. And it left me paranoid. It left me even more anxious. It was just not good, and it was very traumatizing. And for the longest time, I couldn't think about it after we moved out of that house. I couldn't talk about it without feeling like anxiety come over me. And yeah, that I could definitely get more into that, but I kind of left that part out, and I wanted to put that in just in case anybody else is going through that. So we also had a radio in our room, and we had like an alarm clock that my nan gave us, my great-grandmother, like an old school alarm clock. And I would listen to Q102 all the time. Like, I would listen to pop and like the radio. And we also had another stereo in our room, and we always had Q102 on. Like, we literally religiously listened to the radio, like pop music, at around that time. And for some reason, it would always turn on by itself, and it would always go to like the gospel station. It was creepy. We would always be like, do you hear the radio on? Oh my god, it's gospel music. What the heck? That's creepy. This happened a lot. And then another incident for me, this is when my mental health started getting really bad, and I got diagnosed with depression and generalized anxiety disorder. Literally, I'm telling you, I was fine, and then, like, when I moved into this house, stuff started, like, really just going downhill for me with my mental health. And I remember, mostly when I feel energies now, I more so feel things than I see things, and I hear things. That's gonna sound like listen, it's gonna sound like I'm crazy when I say that. But around this time, I just remember never feeling safe in that house, always feeling like somebody was watching me. There was this one incident, and I shared it on TikTok, but I used to be crazy. I would wake up at like 5 a.m. to get ready for school because I wanted to curl my hair, I wanted to do my makeup, I wanted to look cute, whatever. I wake up one morning and I go to take a shower, and we had like this shower curtain that was kind of see-through. You could see like colors, but it was like a privacy shower curtain. So I'm the only one that's awake at the time, and I'm in the shower and I hear somebody knock, and I was like, come in, like, you can come in. And I just see somebody walk in, and I thought it was my twin, and I thought she was wearing my blue robe that I had, because she was wearing blue and her hair was dark, and walks in, stands in front of the sink. And then I hear Kayla, and I'm like, yeah? Nothing. And I'm like, what the heck? And I just had this weird feeling. And then she just turns around and walks out. And I'm like, okay, like, that's weird. So I had a weird feeling, but I'm like, whatever. I try to like push it away. So I finish up in there, and then I go upstairs, and I'm like, my robe. Let me check where my robe is. And it was hanging on the back of our door under a whole bunch of stuff where it was previously. And I looked at Macy and I was like, did you come downstairs? And she was like, no. And I'm like, you didn't come downstairs wearing this robe. And she's like, no. And I'm like, what the hell? It was so creepy. And my mom and my two younger sisters were sleeping in her room. And I told my mom, and she was like, what the hell? Coming back in here again. So I also did not mention the fact that our neighbors next door set up a video camera, because sometimes we would hear like banging in me and my twin sister's closet. And we set a old video camera up, and we left it there all night upstairs in our bedroom. And you could hear like banging and movement in the closet. We didn't have anything in that closet. It was really weird. So those are just some of the experiences I had. There's some more stuff that happened that I just don't really want to share because it was like traumatizing, and I just want to keep that private. But those are those experiences. Of course, the house we moved in after that, we moved to a town called Brooklawn for the entirety of me being in high school. Cute little house. If you know Brooklawn, it's very old and historic. The houses were all built there for the men that worked at the shipyard, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And in my bedroom there, me and Macy shared a room there as well. We had like, you know, a standing mirror that you got at like Walmart or like Family Dollar or something. And I remember seeing shadow figures in the mirror, walking in the mirror. And mind you, while I was in that Collingswood house previously, the last one we lived in, I would see shadow figures all the time, out of the corner of my eye. I don't really see them anymore at all, but I was seeing them constantly. It was crazy. It was just so crazy, so weird. But anyways, in this house, in the Brooklawn house, this is when I started having, I think it was out-of-body experiences while in my dreams, like while I was sleeping. I remember I have a whole dream journal back at home that I could probably share some of my experiences if anybody would like that. And like, I had some crazy dreams. I would always have demonic dreams, dreams where entities were messing with me. Those are my type of nightmares that I have. Some people have like nightmares of like driving off of a bridge into water, or like, I don't know, something happening to somebody they love. I have demonic nightmares because I was so freaking traumatized when I was younger. Oh, and also I forgot to mention, in that house, the last house we lived in Collingswood, there were supposedly 2 portals opened in that house. And of course we played with a Ouija board in that house as well. That's why I don't like Ouija boards. I don't like them. I don't recommend them. Even if you're a professional and you, I mean, who am I to tell you what to do? But I'm just saying, like, don't do it, please. Because that can just open stuff. Even if nothing happens while you're playing with them, it can still open stuff. Anyways, I started having these dreams where, oh my gosh, I would think I was awake, but I wasn't. And I would like, I remember this one dream specifically, I was like banging on the wall because my bed was against the wall, trying to get my twin sister to wake up. And I'm banging on the wall and it's like slow motion. And I somehow managed to get out of bed and I was like going closer to her, but the closer I got to her, the more like numb and paralyzed my body would get. And then all of a sudden it felt like I was being dragged back to my body and I would wake up. But when I would wake up, when these things would happen to me, I felt like I was being watched. Like I felt like I could see things in the room. And that would happen the entire time I was living there. That happened a lot and it was just not a good time. I would keep like hematite under my pillow at night for protection. That room just felt really heavy, and my dog at the time, Reese, when she was still alive, I miss her so much, but she would wake Macy and I up and she would just like look around the room like this, like she was following something, and it would scare us. Like we'd be like, what is she looking at? There was no flies, no bugs, like nothing in the room flying around. She was looking at something and it was just not good. And my sister Maya also, when like, I think she was on Dub Smash or something, whatever that app was at the time, kind of like Musically. She was so young too, it was funny, but she was recording herself and she was like in her bedroom, she had the bedroom at the end of the hallway and mine was on the opposite end. And there was a little girl that walked into my room and it was so creepy in the video. And my youngest sister, Maddie, she was downstairs throwing a temper tantrum, but it was so scary. So we caught that on film. Of course, she lost it. I really wish we had these things still. But yeah, that happened, and this video is so long. I'm probably gonna stop it here because this video is just so flippin' long. There's so much more that's happened, but if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and please subscribe if you would love to hear more of these stories, because there's so much more where this came from. There's even stuff that's happened recently here in the house we live in now that my family's experienced. Now, here's my question. Do you think we're haunted as a family or these places are haunted? Because I feel like we could be haunted or something. And it's not like there's something malicious that's like trying to cause us harm, because there isn't. But there's always something happening. And I just don't understand what it is. I just don't get it. Yeah, let me know your thoughts and opinions on these experiences that me and my family have had. Like I said, I can go into so much more detail. If there's any of these stories that you want to hear more about or have questions, let me know and I can make more videos. I have so many videos that I want to make. And the reason why I'm making these is, yes, I am very fascinated by the paranormal. There's just so much in this universe that we don't understand. There's just so much out there. And a lot of people experience things like this, and I love hearing people's paranormal experiences because it makes me feel less crazy and less alone, and it actually validates my experiences. So yeah, and if you are going through experiences that are creeping you out and you're questioning your sanity, you're not crazy. Just know that you're not crazy. There's so much out in this universe that we just don't understand, and don't forget that literally everything is energy. We don't know what happens after we pass away. We genuinely don't. Then sometimes places hold residual energies. Like, what if those residual energies hold memories, and like certain people that are open, like humans that are like, that have that ability to sense things, like what if we're able to like tap into those things? That's like, this is just stuff I think about, and that's why it's so fascinating to me, because I have experienced things that are unexplainable and kind of scary sometimes. But yeah, if you, like I said, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on the bell notification, or turn on the bell to get notified when I upload. And if you'd like me to bring any of my family members into these videos and we could just talk about stuff, even some of my friends have experienced stuff in my houses, old houses, yeah, let me know. Have a great day and always spread love and light. See you later.